Well, good morning, everyone. That's so quiet. Welcome to the annual meeting. Thank you for taking part in the councils of the church. People have asked who the annual meeting is for, and it's for all of us to know kind of what we're doing, what we're about in this coming year, reflecting back, looking at the budget, just our common life together. So we have a few people that are at home joining us from Zoom. Jim Steinborn, our clerk of our meeting, is one of those. He did not want to spread the pestilence among us. So he is at home. But let us open with a prayer. And this is a prayer from the Book of Common Prayer, a prayer for guidance. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. O God of grace and peace, in whom we live and move and have our being, we humbly pray that you would guide and govern us by your Spirit, that in all the cares and occupations of our life, we may not forget you, but may remember that we are ever walking in your sight. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So the first action is to appoint Jim Steinborn as our clerk of the meeting. So thank you, Jim. We appoint you. And the second action on our list for agenda is to approve the 2024 annual meeting minutes. Did anyone have any amendments or suggestions or changes to those minutes?
Move we approve.
Who moved? Who moved?
What?
Bill moved. Bill Hosell moved. Jim. And who seconded? Tim seconded. Tim Johnson seconded. All in favor?
Continue to work as a tag team.
Tag team? All in favor of approving the minutes from last year, raise your hands. Great. Those are approved. Next up is the warden's meeting. Warden's report, excuse me.
Raven, I think, is still in Wyoming, and so it's just going to be me, if that's all right.
More than all right.
Jen, would you mind moving a little more
In the center,
into the center? I know you love the center.
I am. I do love the center. You've had. Are you gesturing to me?
Yes.
More?
No.
Okay. You've had the report. It was in the epistle, and so I'm not going to read, assuming that we have a literate audience. But I would like to say that the report is full of superlatives, and they should be superlatives. We have had a great year. It has been my privilege to serve this community, and the leadership in this community, to serve with them, has just, it's remarkable. You have a very strong collegial vestry, and with the election of new vestry members, that will absolutely continue. We hope that you elect our new vestry members. A couple of the highlights of the year. Last year, we reported that there was a lease with Trinity. We signed that lease in March, and so its first year is next in a couple of months, and it will automatically renew. I would also like to report that in working with the 301 Faith Partnership, with some strong leadership with Trinity as well, I'm encouraged. I'm very, very encouraged. Trinity took a vote, and they asked 5 questions, very simple questions. Do you approve of the partnership, yes or no? And they invited comments, and 83% approval of the partnership. So that is a very good feeling. They also asked how long would you feel comfortable with a lease, and they gave 1, 2, 5, 10, and 25. Vast majority was 5, and others were after that. So we are encouraged and really blessed, and I hope that you will continue praying for this ministry that we're doing. Raven's still not here. I'll take his part on the work of the outreach action team that was created in 2023 as a result of your asking us to do something, more somethings, a lot stronger emphasis on outreach. And so we did that. And after this, you'll see a message from Holly. That team established a process, turning it over to our next great leaders who will carry on with that mission. We're really pleased with that, being able to do the work that Christ asks us to do. One other highlight, after steps forward and steps backward and forward and backward, we have a sign. It was installed in the spring in time to advertise Easter services, which is just absolutely great. It's not perfect. We're still having some connection issues with it, but there is a sign. And I would like everyone to thank, if you know Amanda Baxon, she's not a member of Trinity, but she is their communications person. She just did Herculean efforts to get that sign up and running, to do the training, et cetera, by Easter. So our church owes Amanda a big thanks. In response to the report from the audit committee, we've done some business-like things. One is we have amended the 2005 Articles of Incorporation and changed the address. There were a couple of other little minor things that needed to be changed. It needs to be signed by the chancellor and signed by the bishop. And we are still,
Raven's on.
oh, yay. Okay, I'll let Raven wrap it up. We're still waiting on those signatures, but I will say that the chancellor and I have become very good friends. Additionally, we amended bylaws this year. The bylaws weren't that out of date, but there were some things that kind of we felt needed to be added to them, and we're going to consider them, and I'll stand up before you again and respond to any questions. They've been published according to the rules of the bylaws. There's been an opportunity to talk. I have talked with several people, and we'll talk further about the bylaws. We were able to assist in the diocesan convention that was here. So Lori and I and Kyle were part of that diocese, and a number of you here helped serve in that. So I will let Raven bring it on home.
Come on.
Jen?
There we go, maybe.
There you are.
Yay. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Raymond.
A couple of things I just wanted to highlight, and one of them was that the work of the outreach action team, because we just did an incredible amount of work this year as a congregation, as a parish around this, and that action team really kind of fulfilled our goal. And it was extraordinary. The process they developed provided just an incredibly strong foundation for continuing this outreach program going forward. And everyone's participation in this, but especially that committee, along with the other outreach efforts, has provided shelter and hope for others, as Christ has asked us to do. So I just really wanted us to take a second to really celebrate that effort, because it was an incredible follow through from beginning to end, where the vestry did a listening session a couple years ago. We took that information and saw the emphasis on outreach that everybody had, and we took that forward into funding, into the outreach committee, into this great process of bringing in lots of different folks who could use help in our community, and then voting on those, and then distributing that money to kind of a full cycle of completion. And so I just wanted us to celebrate as a group, as a community, for having done such an amazing thing. And the other piece I wanted to share was about our exciting and spirit-filled future. And so, unlike many other churches, we have welcomed several new members, all of whom are engaged and important to our faith community. So there was an ask that we please consider adding a dedicated greeting team who can augment the great work of our ushers in welcoming newcomers to our wonderful parish. The vestry and all the lay lead committees and teams continue to be really capable and visionary. We've had so much engagement and work this year. And our confidence also extends to the sabbatical team, who along with the Reverend Peter Munson will be leading this congregation and learning and growing along with our pastor Felicia as she embarks on her pilgrimage in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. I'm just passing these out, if you could hand them. They're in your packets for the financial report, but I really wanted to highlight some particular numbers. So
Where are we on?
what's that? It's the number. I don't think you can find it. It's in the annual report. It's way down. What's this? Oh, okay. So I'm not a numbers person. I'm usually a words person. I spent a lot of time putting words together. Our treasurer and many of the vestry members know a lot about numbers than I do, but I had to highlight these two numbers in this year's vestry, our annual meeting. 85,972 and 4,353. Those are data points. $85,972 were given away by this community, facilitated to give away by this community to nonprofits and individuals that are outside of our congregation. And 4,353 is a number of volunteer hours. And we need to add 25 to that because Genevieve just gave me hers of the number of hours she has spent as being volunteer treasurer. But those are volunteer hours given by our community for the thriving of our community, but also even outside of it to Habitat for Humanity, the food bank, and other offerings like that. And what those numbers say to me is that we have a very engaged congregation. We are not a congregation where we are wondering where people are, when are they going to show up? People are dropping off. And I hear that a lot from other places. So I just want to highlight that this is a very engaged congregation. And also, I think the money given away or facilitated given away speaks to the health of this congregation too. You don't give that kind of money away. In this environment and our culture, it really encourages fear and pulling inward and hoarding. You don't give that kind of money away and those kind of hours away if you don't have this theology of abundance, which I believe this congregation has and it lives out of. So I just want to highlight those numbers because they say a lot more than just numbers on a page. They speak to an engaged community of faith. And I want to thank you for living into that kind of faith here in this time and day. So I think that's going to serve us well as we move into this sabbatical year. And I'm calling it a sabbatical year for all of us. It's not just for the clergy. Some of you know that sabbatical is written into the letters of agreement for every clergy member in the Diocese of Colorado to take a sabbatical every 5 to 7 years. And it's not a reward for work that has been done, but it is an expectation that people go away, they disconnect, they get re-energized to come back and do ministry with the congregation. So that's what I intend to have happen. And in addition to that, we have a sabbatical team that has formed and whose members I'll list off now. We have Seth Steepleton, who's on that team, Sarah Jameson, who is on that team, Welfa McGraw, Lori Goodham, and Amy Agape. And so that team is being drawn together to create experiences and retreats and opportunities for the congregation to engage in sabbatical. And the theme of our sabbatical this year is called pilgrimage. So there are a lot of creative ideas that are being floated and plans being made in that team for you all, so that you can have experiences of pilgrimage, have your life disrupted a bit to follow in God's leading in a variety of different ways, so that when we come back together in mid-August, we'll have experiences to share with each other. And some of these opportunities are rooted in our history, others in our present, and others in our future. So I hope you will take advantage of those that are coming up. They're really exciting. And I think they're going to help us to understand God's leading and understand God's reason for sabbatical and rest and pulling away. And there was a writing by Steve Charleston that I read recently. He is a retired bishop. He's also a native elder. That he was writing about people of faith. And I thought, gosh, that sounds a lot like this community of faith. So I just wanted to end with that. These are words from his book called Wild Faith. And I think you all practice wild faith. So this is what he means by that. We are a wild bunch of believers, those of us who break the rules for good cause. We practice undisciplined smiling when others preach doom and gloom. We are out back helping feed the neighbors while others are up front talking why the neighbors are not hungry. There is more than a method to our madness of love. We are not disrespectful of somber predictions for our shared future, but unwilling to let resignation be our best hope. We are unapologetically committed to trusting in something bigger than ourselves. We are wild because faith is wild when it is untamed by the fences of fear. I think that describes this community. So I thank you for your wildness of faith, and may it continue in the sabbatical year. Next on our agenda, we have a video by Holly Carroll, who is the Outreach Action Team lead in 2024. And she's going to share a little bit more about the details of that team's work for those of you who weren't here during the whole time. So hopefully give us all or remind us all what took place in that work.
Good morning, St. Paul's. I'm sorry I can't join you today in person, but I'm pleased that I can give you this report via Zoom. I don't have a teleprompter, so I'll be looking down at my notes. I have a lot to talk about. To recap, in December 2023, the St. Paul's Vestry appointed a 6-member team to research and identify nonprofit human service agencies that align with our core values for consideration of a one-time cash gift of around $40,000. The recipient would be decided by the congregation. This grant amount represented 1% of the church's investment funds from last year and was not taken from any pledges or other operating income. I want to shout out to our team. The members were Kyle Mail, Terry Birdsong, Jim Pasula, Phyllis Chakowski, and Lyle Smith-Grable. The team worked diligently from January to April 2024 in gathering information on individual organizations. As you know, there are hundreds of nonprofits in Northern Colorado. The team sought help from the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado and United Way of Larimer County to learn more about the overall and pressing community needs. As a starting point, we used the Better Business Bureau's list of accredited charities in Northern Colorado. Using this list, information gleaned from the Community Foundation and United Way and our own research, a preliminary list of 30+ agencies was compiled. After discussion and voting, the list was narrowed to 12. Keeping the whole process simple, each team member was assigned 2 agencies to invite for the gift. The executive director and/or development officer were sent an email asking to describe in only 500 words how the organization would use the money and how it would involve us, the congregation. Each agency was also asked to attach its most current 990 form, as well as any promotional information. The 12 agencies invited to submit proposals were A Little Help, Isaac, Family Housing Network, Teaching Tree, Dementia Together, Crossroads Safe House, Matthews House, La Familia, Grand Family Coalition, FOCO Cafe, Neighbor to Neighbor, and Homeward Alliance. After developing criteria, including financial analysis, the team rated each applicant and narrowed the list further to 5 nonprofits. These nonprofits would be presented to the congregation for voting in May. The total scores of all agencies were very close. They were all very worthwhile nonprofits. The 5 nonprofits moved forward were Crossroads Safe House, Dementia Together, Family Housing Network, FOCO Cafe, and Matthews House. The next step was the congregation voting and informing them. So we wrote summaries of each of the programs. Announcements were made prior to services and in the epistle. Summaries were printed for distribution at the welcome table and, of course, linked in the epistle. An online ballot was created by Jim Pasula using SurveyMonkey's ranked voting ballot option. No 2 ballots had identical order of agencies listed to ensure a fair outcome. Parishioners were asked to rank the agencies 1 to 5, with 1 representing their first choice. Online balloting was activated May 19th and closed on May 29th. A total of 58 votes were received. That represents more than half of our membership. We were pleased with that. The voting results were announced at the June 2nd Sunday service by Jim Pasula. He prepared a detailed analysis and report for the June 6th epistle. The Matthews House was the top choice, receiving 36% of the first place votes. Family Housing Network was a close second. Matthews House received 60% of the votes for first or second place, and Family Housing Network received 55% in those 2 positions. Finishing 3rd to 5th were Crossroads Safe House, Dementia Together, and FOCO Cafe. The first quarterly disbursement of the $40,000 to Matthews House was made on June 11th. In appreciation for the excellent work all 12 agencies provide our community, the vestry approved additional gifts of $500 to the 7 agencies invited to apply and $1,000 to the 4 finalists. The Outreach Action Team is grateful for this generous acknowledgement of these organizations. With this report, our team turns over this ministry to the 2025 Outreach Action Team, led by Greg and Becky Kendall. I know that this ministry will be a rewarding experience for all of you. Thank you.
Bylaws. Just quickly going through, there were a couple little technical changes. There was a reference to specific canons that no longer exist. So I just changed the wording to pursuant to the canon. There were several references to board of directors, and I replaced that to make consistent everywhere it says vestry. The substantive change, let me get closer. The substantive change was adding sections to Article 6 that would define the designated funds, not the operating funds, but the funds that are designated. So they had not been really well defined and there was some confusion. So just kind of going through that a little bit. When I die and you give money in my memory to St. Paul's, that will be the memorial fund. When I die and have my $37 left over that I want to bequeath in my will or trust to St. Paul's without any restriction. St. Paul's can use that for anything they want it to use it for. That will be an unrestricted legacy fund. If I died and had $37 left over and gave it to St. Paul's and said, here's my $37, you may only use it for investments for clergy. That would restrict that money and it is out of the hands of any governing agency. So there's no reason to even include that in the bylaws because there's nothing that can be done. Our quasi-endowment is that money from the proceeds of the sale of the building. And that is considered by the Episcopal Church Foundation as a quasi-endowment. And so that is defined here. And it also provides that based on advice from our investment committee, and the investment committee is involved in both the undesignated legacy fund or the unrestricted legacy fund and this quasi-endowment, that the income, the investment income, not the corpus, just the investment income may be used with the advice of the investment committee for programs that the vestry decides. So those are the changes. Are any of the definitions unclear?
Can you tell us again what category the money from the sale belongs to?
Quasi-endowment.
Quasi-endowment?
Yeah, and specifically it says that the proceeds from the sale of the property will be invested pursuant to the advice of our endowment committee as defined in section 1 of this article. And the income may be used, the investment income, not the corpus, just the investment income may be used for specific programs or projects as decided.
And that's what the outreach team used for the money Holly was just talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
If a donation, a directed donation is made to a specific ministry within the church, for example, the flower ministry, will that money be indeed reserved for the use of and the needs of the flower committee?
Yes.
Or, because that has not always been the case.
It's always been the case.
Well, a substantial portion of the funds that were dedicated and directed for the flower committee were taken away from the flower committee as recently as a year or two.
With a, go ahead, with the permission of those who gave.
Yes,
It was not done without permission of those who gave.
correct.
There, that was with permission.
Do we need to bring this up again? I mean, it's already been done, it was all voted on, everything was fine, I don't think there's anything new to talk about.
May I also get back to, that is outside of the discussion on the bylaws,
Yes.
Yes.
because those are not prescribed. There's no language about those in the bylaws. We're considering these 3 amendments, or this specifically 1 amendment.
Yes.
1 substantive amendment. Any other questions about the bylaws? Okay. Can we
Take a vote.
I move the question.
thank you, Mike?
Everyone on Zoom, you will need to show us either your hand or the little emoji you can find at the bottom of the screen. Where is it? Reactions, yeah, where it says react with the little heart on the bottom of your screen. You can either put up a hand there or raise your hands. And yeah, Elaine and Florian, you'll both have to raise your hands. Okay.
Okay, so
And we need their faces?
Do we, if they put up the react, do we need their faces?
Yeah, I think we do.
I don't
Okay.
know that we have a motion.
Everybody
We
needs
moved
to
it.
show their faces.
We moved the question.
Second.
Okay, Mike moved, Barb seconded the motion. Mike Werner, Barb
Morris.
Morris, thank you. Seconded the motion. So we'll count here. You need to, anybody can help me count? Raise your hand and I'll count the hands in favor.
And we've determined that you can be on video and have a vote. Okay, because I heard the opposite at one point, so we've just determined that if they're on video, they can still vote because they're present.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That's been the practice the last 4 years.
pardon?
That's been the practice the last 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I did count these guys.
Okay.
And I counted 12 up there.
And we have 26 here.
26 and 12.
How many people are here? We just need 3.
Actually, did you get John?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on
With his
speakerphone
video.
for a minute. Joseph Johnson didn't.
Okay, but there were two at Elaine and Florian's house. So.
Yep, got those.
And then 13, oh, that's me.
12.
I'm sorry, I'm half asleep, but we are voting to accept exactly what here?
The bylaws. Amendments to the bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Steinborn, do you need any additional information?
I do not.
So the bylaws changes amendments have passed. Okay, thank you. Yay. No, that's re-elections.
No,
No, the treasurer's report, sorry.
I'm gonna hope that folks can hear me okay online and here without me taking my mask off. Is that okay? Thumbs up in the back? Okay. First, the multi-page one that's got a staple that you guys have that has a narrative on the front. This is a report for the whole year of how we did in 2024. So this is looking back for the year. We ended ahead of budget. And yes, we ended ahead of budget. We came in about $19,000 ahead on our revenues, our income, and our expenses were right about online with budget, right on target, which was great. We had budgeted a loss of $52,000, and we came in with a loss of only $30,000. And the main reason that we were over ahead of budget was because of the revenue being so much more. We are okay from an unrestricted net assets perspective because we are using part of the investment income from our property proceeds. Part of that is being used to pay for our pledge to the diocese and our pledge to Front Range region. And so that amounts to about $45,000, a little bit under. You'll see that in account number 5550 and 5555 on the list here. So when you add those back in, you end up with a gain of about $12,000 to $15,000 for the year. So, does anybody have any questions about our report looking back for last year that I can answer? Yes?
I just have a question about, I was told that the flower fund was out of money in November. And I just wondered how the flowers were being paid for now.
We're out of money in November. Where did you hear that from?
John, who's the chairman for that class, and he told me that you took addition of $500 from Miriam Pugh, that there was no more money in the flower fund, but yet we're still getting paid for the flowers we bought.
So there's this historical altar flower fund is still, has a balance of $3,200. I don't know about, I didn't talk with Joan that I recall about it in November. And let's see if Joan is here. I saw Seth earlier. She's not here.
What number is that, so I can show it on the screen?
Scroll down to the end. Here we go. So these are the two. So as of December 31st, it was down to zero because I think it was maybe $150 or so that was left for the Flowers Outreach Evangelism Fund, and that what goes into this line, and now $368 is what we have for outreach and evangelism, because we've notified people since the beginning of 2024 that when they give money for flowers, any amount that's left over at the end of the year goes into outreach and evangelism. So we are getting that acceptance from people on the front end when they're giving money for flowers. So we are allowed to do that. It is within the restrictions of people donating.
But that didn't, sorry.
Yep.
That didn't happen until the 31st of December, right?
No, that happened.
Well, this last transaction didn't get made until everything was closed out for the year. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I wanted
Yep.
clarity on.
Yeah.
So before that, that $368 was in the flower.
Part of it was because I think we started this program, I want to say it was in the last quarter of 2023. I'd have to look at my notes and see when we started doing it, because not the whole 368. Some of it came from 2023.
Okay.
Left over there. But there's always this $3,200 historical flower funds that is available and until it gets fully expended.
Because she told me that we were out of money.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a conversation. I'd have to touch base with Joan and find out what that was. You guys always have access to buy flowers with this $3,200. So you're never out of money until that $3,200 goes down to zero. Then you could say we're totally out of money. But that's been, I mean, over the last 10 years, that number has been as high as like $12,000 that we've had for flowers over the years. So it's finally kind of come down. I think a new refrigerator was purchased, or a second refrigerator was purchased. And the money that Ray, you were probably talking about before was, we contacted people that had given to the flower fund and asked them if they wanted to repurpose their donation to outreach and evangelism. And we only moved the money where people said, yes, I want to do that. That's the only money that was moved. And that is legal and that is normal. And that is okay, because the donors who gave the money are the ones that are allowed to change the restriction on that. It's not that once they give to the flower fund, then the flower committee gets to make all the decisions about it. The donor can still redirect that money somewhere else. And that's what many people did. The people that did not is what is still living in that $3,200. So we did not move any money that people did not want moved out of the flower fund. And I have an entire list, and we have emails of what we got from folks about that. Just to clarify for everybody. Yes, Pete?
Well, notice all of the categories below that have zero.
Why do they have zero? Or
No, that they do have zero.
they do have some zeros. It's just,
Yeah.
these are categories that we've had for a long time, and sometimes people periodically give to them. Some of the money has been in there for a really long time and we've not been able to spend. Some of it, like EFM, I'm not sure if we're doing EFM anymore, but we've got $345 marked for that for stuff. We don't have a youth group anymore, but we've got money earmarked for the mission trip until we do a mission trip, or, if we decide that we want to take the effort to reach out to those donors and ask them to repurpose the money for something else, we could do that too. It does take a lot of work to do that. But these are all the designated money. So anytime somebody gives money for specific use, this is how we track it. So this is how you know that we're keeping track of every dollar that comes in, and if somebody's restricted it to something, it's only gonna get spent on that. And we have this spreadsheet going back, I don't know, 10 years, for a long time, since I've been involved with doing this stuff, so.
So is that why it's called historical altar flowers? What's the historical meaning on that?
Well, because we changed how we were doing the flowers at the last quarter of 2023, we wanted to make sure that we had clarity on which were the new dollars that people were giving that were okay and cleared for giving to outreach evangelism, and which ones were not, and which ones were the dollars before that. So just from an accounting perspective, we wanted to have different names of the funds, because if everything was just called flowers, it'd be hard to tell which, is this the old flowers or the new flowers? So that's more of a, it's not a technical term, it's just so that we can be sure that when money comes in the door, we're getting it in the right spot.
Thanks.
Pete?
I have a question because I'm a little confused.
Uh-huh.
Having to do with the interest, the dividends from the church sale fund. How
The
much
property
is
proceeds?
that total dividend?
From selling the property?
No, the income from.
How much the income is,
investment
from which period, for which period of time?
For last year.
For last year, yes, that is, oh, I didn't put it on that, it's on the screen here, hang on, let me find it, hang on. We had, income of $398,000. If you scroll up, just one page, oh, stop here. Where is it? Investment income Vestry designated, this $398,000, that's what we had in investment income in 2024 from the property proceeds.
I just want to make sure it's clear what that amount is.
Yep, right here.
Is that the total quasi endowment or is it
No.
just the proceeds?
No, neither, actually. This is just investment income in the calendar year of 2024. We
So
have
is
it-
the investment income just from the proceeds or the investment income also from the unrestricted legacy funds? Because I have just,
The unrestricted legacy funds are up here, our
8, 3, 4,
memorial,
5.
let's see, hang on a second. $83.45. Unrestricted legacy funds income, $116,000. Now that does include, the gift from somebody's estate during the year. And then the restricted legacy funds, 83.46, had income of this, 11.45 for, whoops,
so here's the 4 plus.
so this,
So this is the interest earned.
so the culmination of all of those numbers together is what comes to
So is
this.
that in addition to 2 unrestricted legacy funds that are also in that investment?
Well, the unrestricted legacy funds is an 82.45, income is in that. The legacy restricted fund is an 82.46, and then the property proceeds that are not part of the legacy funds is in 83.98.
Okay.
So we've got it split up into different categories. And this is not the balance, this is just the investment income, which is dividends, interest, realized gains and losses, and unrealized gains and losses. A few years ago, when the markets went down a whole bunch, we had negative numbers in here because we had losses. So it's not always gonna be positive. Did that answer?
That's a very good income. Of 0.4.
It's $4 million. So yeah, it's doing pretty well this year.
Not 4 million in income.
No. He said it's good income. I said it's because it's on $4 million of a base, the proceeds was. So when you have that much money, you get a nice little bump in income. Did that answer your question, Pete?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Are
Yes,
there any more copies of that?
of the budget? They were in the back. I don't think,
There's some up here.
So,
it's the stapled page where there's a narrative on the front. It's just the last page. These are pages in that.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sure.
To me, that's 398,000. Is that the total over the 6 years or so since we sold the property, or is that 1 year?
That is just 1 year from 2024, what we got in income, just 1 year. It is not since the beginning of time.
Wow.
Good year in the market.
It's a good year in the market.
That's 25% fraction. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Yes, Terry.
While it is a great income and there were good results of last year's investing, I want to remind people that when we sold the building, that money sat in a bank account, not earning anything for a period of time. And then it was put in Fidelity for a period of time. But again, not invested like it is now. And we have very good advice now using the diocesan, or what is, I can't remember.
It's the Episcopal Church Foundation, so the nationwide one.
And they've done a great job.
Mhm.
And I just like to remind everybody, it sat in the bank because we thought we were gonna buy a building.
Yeah, the vestry had not, that's exactly right. Thank you, Becky. I was gonna mention that. We asked the vestry and had conversations with the vestry, okay, we want to invest this, but we need to know when you're gonna use it. And there was a whole lot of discussion and nobody could ever decide when we were gonna use it, and everybody thought it was gonna be soon. So that's why we waited. If without a time horizon, we just didn't think it was gonna be prudent to do something. But that's water under the bridge now. We can't go back and change any of that stuff. Probably things we could have done better, Terry. Probably so, but it is what it is now. It's in a good place now and it's earning now, and we're giving it away, right? As Felicia shared with us, that $85,000, which is amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, would be my personal opinion, since we decided to sell that property, it's a new property. And since this money is invested, and the price of properties continues to go up, I think any kind of from the investment, to me, is a little foolhardy. Because if there does come a time when we have an opportunity to buy a place, we're gonna need more money than we originally had.
Does somebody want to talk about what
I understand that this should go to the vestry.
Right.
And I understand those kind of ideas, but if we look at it as a group, are we gonna stay here forever?
Might. Hopefully.
You know, are we going to have plans to go to a different place? And if that's the case, shouldn't we take those investment funds that we get from there? I mean, this is how I deal with my personal affairs. That I would not, because I gained last year, I'm not gonna take those gains and spend them. What I do is reinvest so that that continues to grow in the sense that we can have that option.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let one of the members of or let Jan speak to that, because the vestries have lots of conversations about that over the last several years.
Sure.
The vestry will continue to have lots of conversations. We have an investment committee whose advice we take. No. And so that's good advice. And we have heard that advice before, that all of those things are being taken under advice by an investment committee and the vestry. So thank you for your comment, because I think that's a good comment.
Any other questions about how we did last year before I move on to the 25 budget? Okay, let's move on to the 2025 budget. I don't think we need to accept, we've taken votes before the vestry instructed it, but okay. All right, the budget is the single page that's double-sided that was handed at the front and the back of the room. If anybody needs another one, raise your hand and we'll get some to you. Except those one around. So this budget was pulled together and approved by the vestry. It was amended, and I almost sent out the wrong one, but I sent out the right one with the amendment for the vestry. And so what you see in comparison here is last year's budget, the final actual results for 2024. Thank you. and the new budget for 2025. So we actually are budgeting, our income is gonna be a little bit lower than it was our budget for last year. And part of the reason that we had a lower amount is because the plate offerings were actually quite significant this year, and we know what that's from, and it's a bit of an anomaly. So we do not expect that to continue. Our pledge payments, while it looks like it's been really kind of static and close to the same, we've actually had a lot of new people pledging, and we've lost some pledgers due to moving out of state or moving away. So the other highlights I want to give in the budget are the vestry did vote to do a 3% salary increase for the rector and the staff.
Yay.
For the staff that we're accepting of one. We have adjusted some of Felicia's expenses for clergy support and continuing education based on her sabbatical. So we pulled that down a little bit. You'll see that there's the supply clergy expense of about $3,700. That's in account number 5145 to pay for that's the second half of the 3 months. So 3 months you're gone, right? 12 weeks, 3.5 months, 15 weeks. We kind of saved up $3,800 last year for it, and we're saving up another $3,800 to use this year for it. So that's what that line is. And then on the second page, the vestry is for diocesan and Front Range region giving. The vestry did vote to do 10% of pledge and plate and 5% pledge and plate, which is what's requested in the canons. We have no change to our rent expense for Trinity. And then I did want to highlight for folks that give online through Vanco. If you donate online and have it pull out of your account where you log on and you tell it how much it is, just an FYI, there are fees that are associated with that. So if you're able to, it'd be great if you check the box to help pay for the fees to do that. So there's a little bit of expense for that. In total, our expenses for 2025, we expect to be just under $330,000, which leaves us with a deficit of $67,805 before we do the thing with our investments. So including all the expenses and where our pledges are, we are budgeting to have a loss of $68,000. But what I do at the very bottom is I have it kind of an add back. So the diocesan and Front Range region giving that we've pledged is going to be paid for using that investment income from the property proceeds. Given that, that's kind of is sort of an add back, so that the loss that the vestry is voting for and approved in the budget, approved in the budget, is a loss really better described as the $28,655 here. It's a little bit funky. The reason is because I add these back because the income from the property proceeds doesn't show up in the top line by the revenue. It shows up in our designated expenses or our designated income, which is what, like, below our operating income. Below the line is kind of what we use to talk about that. So the income comes in underneath in a different spot. That's why we kind of got to do a little bit of weird stuff to add back here. Clear as mud, everybody?
Very clear.
Yes.
I don't know if you add that, because things are volatile. What if the investment income went to zero? Would that mean we cut out our donations to the diocese?
The vestry could decide to do that, but
It has in the past.
and it has actually, that's true. I think it's in the past too, when we've had losses. So the thing to think about is, you know, the stock markets go up and down. And so we are only pulling out 2%. So we're only taking a distribution of 2% of the property fair market value in a year to pay for the diocesan and Front Range region pledges and the outreach action team money that we're giving away. So that's 2%. So in years that we are earning like 10%, which I didn't actually look up the amounts for this year, but it's probably about 10% that we earn this year, we're not spending that whole 10%. So we've kind of banked 8% of it and we've taken 2% of it. So over time, when we have losses, that'll kind of get cushioned by the 8% and kind of the years that we had much better returns, it's cushioned by that. So in the long run, it's gonna continue to grow. In individual years, there'll be years where we have a loss and we're still taking money out and spending it because we're using stuff that we sort of saved in years where we had better returns.
And we haven't had that before, and that's when it stopped paying themselves.
Say that again?
Well, 1 year Jen was saying, that, well, at least 1 year, we cut the amount we gave them because we didn't have a cushion because we'd not been putting any money.
I think that was before we started saying we were using the investment money to pay for the diocesan Front Range region. I think that was before we started kind of consciously making that decision to do that.
So it was just in the general budget then.
Right. I think so.
For clarification, I think.
Yep.
When you don't use all the income from the investment, you're reinvesting it.
It basically all stays invested.
Into the fund.
Yep.
But you can track that and say, if I'm understanding what you're saying, is that you're still going back to the original amount and say you can't touch that.
Right.
Or is it what you can't touch is also the reinvestment?
No, that we can't touch the original amount.
Thank you. That's
We
good
did
clarification.
reduce the original amount by the $30,000 or so we spent on the Columbary amount.
Right.
Because we spent that money, so that reduced that principal amount that we think of. Other questions about the budget? Okay. That's it, and I think that the vestry already approved it, so there's not really a vote that needs to happen for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have the best treasurer.
I know, 25 hours of volunteer service, that seems really low.
Oh, that's
Considering how many
right.
times I'm on the phone with you and emailing back and forth.
I'm just really good.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Janine. Next on our agenda, Becky Scheller to lead vestry elections.
When it's time, everybody to vote, everybody at home, again, turn on your screen so we can see you. When I was kind of preparing for this and thinking about Raven becoming our senior warden, it has been 12 years since we've had a man in the senior warden position. So I think Raven's got some big footprints to log. I'm gonna just ask everybody here to stand up so we know who we're voting for. So Sarah Jameson for junior warden.
And can you also say something so the
Oh, the camera turns to you. No, say it because the camera moves.
If you stop talking, I'll. I'm Sarah, big deer, full face.
Steve Holmes.
He's not here.
Steve's not here, okay. He'll be running for a 3-year term. Barb Morris. And then Joan Vanderkloot will be running for a 2-year term to fill Sarah's position. And there's Joan. Okay, so Felicia, would you like to nominate the junior and senior wardens?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Raven Agape to be the senior warden for his last year on the vestry. And I'd like to nominate Sarah Jameson to be the junior warden. Each are 1-year terms.
Okay, and just a correction, Raven could serve as senior warden for more than 1 year. Yeah, I think so, if he's only been on. Okay, we won't worry about that right now.
Okay. So that's my nomination.
Okay, those are the nominations. Betsy?
A second?
Oh,
Or you're not ready for a second?
sure.
I vote
Betsy.
for the nominations be closed.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy and Pete. All in favor of Raven as our senior warden and Sarah as our junior warden, please raise your hands. I'd say it's unanimous. Lower your hands. Thank you. And now, are there any nominations for Vestry? We've got 3 vacancies, 3 people willing to serve, but I can take nominations from the floor if the person you nominate agrees to serve. So are there any nominations from the floor for Vestry members?
I would move nominations cease.
Thank you, Sue. All in favor by acclamation of these 3 Vestry members, please raise your hands. And again, unanimous. You can lower your hands. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those of you who have said you're willing to serve. It means a lot to have strong leadership in the church. And now the only thing left to do is to thank people, which I hope we do all along the way. There are a few people that you might not know. Beth McKnight, who served as the clerk of the vestry last year. They joined us, she and her husband Paul, from Longmont online. And she took minutes online for our vestry meetings. She and her husband moved to Oregon, and so she gave up that position, and I'll be sending her a thank you and a thank you gift. I wanted to vocalize her name. And just so you know, this is kind of freaking me out, but we've decided next year to allow AI to take our minutes for our vestry meetings through Zoom. So we tried it for the first time this last vestry meeting. It does remarkably scary well. So we have to do some context preparation for it before they are sent out, but that's our plan moving into the future. And to thank retiring vestry members. I'll start with Tim Johnson, who has served many times on the vestry. I don't know how many times Tim has been on the vestry. 2 or 3.
And as senior warden.
Oh.
Yeah. And junior warden.
I have a gift for Tim, and this is just a little piece of St. Paul's history that we thought you might appreciate hanging in your house.
I will. Thank you.
And I have the same gift for Jim Steinborn, who is online, that I will get to him. Some of you longtime St. Paul's members will recognize this. Now, I haven't been at St. Paul's that long, but my understanding is those mark the Stations of the Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're made out of railroad ties.
Correct.
Yeah.
Spikes.
Spikes, railroad spikes, yeah. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Jim. You will get this. Yes, thank you, Jim. And as I texted Jan yesterday, I'm trying to order less from Amazon. So I decided I'd order from Etsy, and guess what? It got lost in the mail. One was coming all the way from Scotland, so I knew that it would be delayed, but the other that was stateside, getting lost in the mail, was such a disappointment. So I have gifts for Jan, and I have this card. Gosh, I want to thank you so much for your leadership. I have learned so much from Jan, who has years of experience as a leader, not only in the secular realm, but in the church. She's been senior warden before, but what I have so appreciated from Jan is her gift of encouragement of me personally, but always also looking at things through the lens of faith. That's just what you do in your life. And so I thank you for that. And this is a card and gifts to follow. Thank you. Well, that concludes our agenda for today. I want to thank everyone for your presence here and go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thank you.
Thanks.